Joining me today is Joe Salter, founder of a company called Where Does It Come From? Now, it's a really intriguing name for a business, Joe. Tell me a little bit more about the company and how it came about.
Well, Where Does It Come From is like the Ron seal, does what it says on the tin, really. I wanted to find out a lot more about the origins of our products and where we get things from. So I started looking into it a lot more, looking into some of the chemicals and the issues around our clothing, some of the poor conditions of our garment workers. And I thought, I'm not the only one who wants to know this kind of information. So I set up a business called Where Does It Come From? Everything that you buy from Where Does It Come From has a code on the label, and I happen to be wearing one of our scarves. So we have a label here, and you have a code on it, which you then type in to the website, and it tells you where your cotton grew, about the people who wove and spun your product, and the whole story of the garment. So that's why it's got its name. The idea of it really is that we have a number of beneficiaries. The first one is obviously the garment makers, because we're a fair trade business and we pay fair trade prices. We like to know the people behind our products, so we find out who they are, what their lives are like, that kind of thing, and give them as much beneficiary of the money that we are paying for them as we can. And it's all very traceable, so we know where that money goes. The second beneficiary is the planet that we all live on. So we try to be as low carbon as possible. We use organic cotton, we use non-toxic dyes, all of that kind of thing. And the process that we use, like hand weaving, hand spinning, hand printing, this has been hand printed. So, for example, someone's gone on and just printed the designs all over it, but that doesn't use any energy apart from human energy. So the idea is that we have as minimal footprint as possible. And lastly, the last beneficiary is us as consumers, because I feel that we have become very disconnected from our products recently, over the last 30 years or so, especially with fast fashion coming along. We buy things, we think we can just buy something for a night out and then chuck it away and it goes into landfill. But we don't, it's not just the waste side, which is mega, but it's also the effect on us as consumers, because we don't have that satisfaction and that love for our garments that our mothers and grandmothers before us used to have. So it's just, we don't have any love of it. So my idea is that we have stories of our garments, of how they came to us, and then we build our own stories onto that. So I don't know if you have an outfit that you wore to a particular occasion that is now special to you, and I think that happens more and more and more. So you take something out of your wardrobe and you feel more positive. So it's a mental health benefit too.
So there's a lot of talk in society about us doing the right thing, so the vehicles that we drive, as you say, the clothes that we wear, but are people prepared to pay more for it? Because ultimately there's a cost attached.
Well, the market in the UK, the ethical market in the UK has grown year on year, and I think it's about 8.6, 8.7% now on last year's report. Now, an ethical market, that covers the whole gamut of what is ethical, which is obviously how long is a piece of string. But you've got organic, you've got vegetarian, you've got people buying local, cruelty-free, all of those kind of things, fair trade as well, of course. So we know that people are willing to want to buy. And part of the problem has been that the stories haven't been there. People don't know where to buy. So that's one answer to your question. The other one is the prices have been kept particularly low, because if you think about fashion, the price of a fashion an item hasn't gone up in 30 years. You're looking at the clothes, we're paying the same for our clothes as we paid in the 1980s. You can buy a school uniform in a supermarket for $4.99. So it's crazy how the prices have stayed cheap. So some of that has been kept deliberately low, and then if you think about, it's justice. You're paying the people fair wages, so their wages have carried on being really low or become lower to keep prices low for us. So what we're really looking for is prices to be fair rather than prices to be cheap.
So is some of this about education, so that consumers of tomorrow naturally will think this way when they shop?
Yeah, I think that is absolutely spot on. And I do think that the young people at school, they are becoming very aware of ethical issues. And all the things in the news around plastics it's getting to our kids. They understand it completely. So I think
when do you think social media helps with that? Because younger people are consuming news in perhaps a way that they weren't previously.
I think that's really true. And I think it's also easier to understand, isn't it? When you see a big pile of plastic bottles, or you see somebody slaving in a factory, then you can really appreciate that a lot more. And I think that's globalisation and social media have shared that information, whereas perhaps I call it ethical blindness because people didn't know, and they really didn't want to know, because you don't want to know upsetting things, do you? You don't want to. So you don't want to think that your t-shirt was made by some person in a factory who was having a terrible life of it. And then in 2013, of course, there was the Rana Plaza factory disaster where 1,200 people were killed when a factory fell on them. And I think some of the images in the media of clothing labels or brands that we all know in the UK very clearly that were working in that factory. And I think for a lot of people that was a big wake-up call.
And highlights the issue.
Absolutely, and that's where Fashion Revolution came along. So it's in its, we're on now 2018, gosh, it's 5th year, Fashion Revolution. So the anniversary of that factory collapse, there's a big campaign every year where we ask customers to hold up a sign saying who made my clothes, to contact their brands, and brands respond, but brands have been responding really well, so that's fantastic. So yeah, all that is on social media.
So you feel really encouraged about where it's heading?
I really do, actually. I think it's fantastic the way it's going. I think a lot of people are behind it, and I think it's the collaboration side too. So I think a lot of small brands, such as Where Does It Come From, are grouping together to do things. So for example, last year we made a video. I think there was 12 brands involved in the video. This year we're having a big event in London. There's 30 brands involved, and that's just one small part of what people are doing around the world. And in the UK particularly, we're working really hard at it. So it's great, really. And it's not just the small brands. The big brands are getting involved too. We've got loads of work going on with people like H&M and Marks and Spencer's doing loads of things. So it's fab, really.
You mentioned yourself as a small brand, but a small brand that, dare I say it, punches above its weight. There's a certain Joanna Lumley association.
Oh, well, yes, that's Joanna, yes. No, that was fantastic, and Joanna, I have huge respect for her because she wore one of our scarves on her documentary last year, Joanna Lumley's India. And she did that out of the goodness of her heart, and hopefully because she liked the scarf, because it's got elephants on it. I know she's very fond of them. But that was fantastic and hugely appreciated. And I see Joanna Lumley as a real icon, because not only is she into fashion, but she's really ethical as well, and she speaks her mind about ethical issues. So she's a fantastic role model.
Where do you want the business to go forward from here, Jo?
It's one of those things, isn't it? I was asked this yesterday as well. I think for me, I want us to carry on doing the same things in terms of partnering with social enterprises abroad, broadening our range of different products. We're very much about basics. We don't do throwaway fashion. So the idea of a scarf is you can wear it in multiple ways, multiple outfits. We have shirts, we have kids' clothes, that kind of thing. So we're basics. I want to keep doing that. This year we're working on a project to do a tunic for ladies that you could wear in the day for work, using African prints, so that's going to be another staple. So I want to carry on doing that. I want to carry on with the number of partners that we're working with, but really just getting the message out there, and depending what comes along, we're moving very much towards a non-plastic thing as well now, and there will be more information that comes out, and we'll pick that up and go with it.
It's a fascinating story, so thank you very much for sharing it with us today, Jo.
Thank you.